Have you ever looked around the modern digital audio player market and realized nothing really means anything anymore? Every few months, Astral and Kern, Ibasso, KN, Fio, Hibi, Shanling, the usual suspects, they all release something new. A refreshed chassis, a different color, maybe a spec bump, and a buzzword. And yet, fundamentally, nothing has changed. Every one of these devices is just another Android shell, a half-baked operating system with streaming apps that lag because the SoC, system on a chip, inside is barely worthy of a budget phone from 6 years ago. They advertise Bluetooth LDAC and Wi-Fi streaming as if that somehow qualifies as audiophile. But here's the punchline. Bluetooth is not high resolution. It's compressed, lossy, and limited by the same bottlenecks as every phone. So what exactly are we buying anymore? A glorified phone without the phone, or the connectivity, or the streamlined nature, or the good chips? Probably. Let's rewind. The whole point of a digital audio player was to remove distractions, to carry your high-resolution library in your pocket, to enjoy lossless audio without the noise floor, the notifications, or the battery drain of a phone. It was a focused experience, not a multitasking one. In fact, I think this actually reaches all the way back into 2001 when Apple released the original iPod. It was a simple device that allowed you to carry, 1,000 songs in your pocket without having to worry about a CD player or other unnecessary bulk. And I think generally that's where the Calyx M comes in. Released nearly a decade ago, it wasn't perfect even back then, not even close. Frankly, now it's chunky, the battery life is terrible, the UI is quirky, but you know what? It's pure. There's no Android skin pretending to be an ecosystem. There's no Bluetooth toggle to tempt you into mediocrity. There's just a DAC, and a damn good one, the ESS Sabre ES9018 2M. And it has a basic purpose, to play back your music with clarity, space, and body. When you turn on a Calyx M, it's not trying to be anything else. It's a music player. Nothing more. And in that restraint, there's something elegant, even revolutionary, especially compared to what we have now. Look at what the DAP markets become. Companies fight over features that have nothing to do with sound quality. Streaming integration, fancy aluminum chamfers, dual DACs, quad DACs, octa DACs, marketing over meaning. We have reached the point where the average digital audio player's value proposition is Android 12 with LDAC. But let's be real, LDAC, as I said, is a lossy codec. Wi-Fi streaming is still, as I said, a compressed source. And these so-called audiophile grade Androids all have the same Achilles heel. Terrible processors. Because these companies don't make SoCs. They buy cheap mid-range chips and overprice them in fancy shells. You can pick up any mid-tier Android phone today, Pixel, Samsung, OnePlus, and all those no-name brands out there on Amazon and AliExpress, and they will outperform most digital audio players in raw processing power, display quality, and app responsiveness, which is really a lot to think about here. These sorts of devices do everything better. So what's the point of spending $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 on what's essentially a slow phone with an OK DAC and a boutique logo? At that point, you might as well use your phone with a $150 dongle DAC, at the most costly, by the way. You don't need anything more expensive, and you'll get the same or better sound. Another argument you'll hear from die-hard audiophiles is that you need a dedicated digital audio player because phones don't have balanced outputs, or frankly, technically, they don't even have headphone jacks. As if the absence of a 4.4mm jack is some kind of fatal flaw. And let's unpack that for a second. Balanced output is a circuit topology, not a guarantee of better sound. The whole idea, carrying equal and opposite signals to cancel noise, was designed for long cable runs in professional environments. It makes sense in a recording studio where cables stretch 20 feet across a floor and crisscross each other. It makes zero sense in a portable audio player where your IEM cable is maybe, 3 feet, 4 feet long, and already shielded. Most digital audio players with balanced circuits don't even offer a true differential signal path from DAC to output. Many are pseudo-balanced. They simply duplicate the output stage to drive each channel separately. That may give you a slight bump in voltage, but it doesn't magically improve noise performance or dynamics. And even if you do want balanced output for whatever reason, you can get it. Portable DACs like the hifi Go Bar, Questel M15, or even $100 dongle DACs from Vio offer genuine balanced stages with higher output power than most digital audio players. Plug them into your phone and congratulations, you now have balanced output with better UI, faster performance, and infinite app support. The notion that you need a $1,000 brick just to get a 4.4mm jack is absurd. It's another myth used to justify hardware that's solving a problem most people don't actually have. Then there's the other obsession, power output. You see it in every comment thread and every review. This one has 1.5 watts per channel. This one can drive the Susvara. This one measures 127 decibels SNR. As if anyone is walking around the city with 600 ohm Bayers or a Hi-Fi Man HE6 strapped to their head. Come on, when was the last time you saw that happen other than at Can Jam? Let's actually talk about how much power modern headphones need. Take the Focal Clear MG, 55 ohms, 104 decibels per milliwatt. To hit 110 decibels SPL, which is very high by the way, you need about 4 milliwatts. The Meze 109 Pro, 40 ohms, 112 decibels per milliwatt. You could drive that to painful levels with a basic smartphone dongle, or actually, technically, you might also be able to do that with just the smartphone that has a headphone jack. Even planar magnetics like the Audeze LCD-X, around 20 ohms and 103 decibels per milliwatt, only need about 20 milliwatts for thunderous volume. The Hi-Fi Man Aria Stealth, which gets mentioned endlessly in power-hungry lists, is rated 94 decibels per milliwatt at 32 ohms. That means you will hit deafening levels at around 100 to 150 milliwatts. Guess what? A $150 dongle DAC like the Questel M15, Vio KA17, or Moondrop Dawn Pro can do that with room to spare. You don't need a 2-watt DAP to run any of these. The only headphones that genuinely need watts of power are extreme outliers. The Hi-Fi Man Susvara, HE6, Abyss 1266, and yes, there are some specialty headphones, such as the Modhouse Argons, that require such loads of power. And these headphones were built for desk rigs, not backpacks. 99% of audiophiles will never own these sorts of headphones, let alone use them portably. So, where does this obsession come from? From reviewers who need a headline. It's easy content. Imagine, this DAP can drive the Susvara. Sounds like an achievement, even if no one should be doing it. And really, are you really buying a Susvara? Reviewers love specs they can measure or exaggerate because objective listening impressions are harder to communicate. The industry feeds on that limitation. Every generation, companies bump up the wattage output so it looks like progress. The audience eats it up because it's quantifiable. More power equal more better. It's the same dopamine loop that camera companies use with megapixels and CPU makers use with cores. People assume a bigger number means higher quality. But in audio, it usually just means higher noise, more heat, and lower battery life. And here's the irony. Chasing ever higher power ratings can often reduce fidelity. Most headphones sound their best when the amplifier is working comfortably within its linear range, not at 1% of its potential, not at 50%. Driving a sensitive, dynamic headphone off a DAP that can output 2 watts means your usable volume range is the bottom 3 millimeters of the knob. You're basically amplifying background noise anything higher. The Calyx M never fell for that trap. Its design focused on clean voltage swing and low distortion, not brute force. It doesn't try to drive this as far. Well, it can't. It just plays music beautifully with normal headphones, which incidentally is what most of us actually use. Products like the Calyx M, ancient and clunky as they are, still do the same job that the more expensive modern digital audio players do, but without all that clunky UI included, without the slow Android, without having to log into Google in order to get access to the Play Store where you can download other applications that may or may not be fully compatible with your digital audio player that you just spent $5, $6, $7, $800 for, because you just realized that the Android OS is outdated, that the SoC is underpowered, and that, oh, look at that, you really do need more than 4 gigabytes of RAM to run this thing that really shouldn't need more than 1 gigabyte of RAM because all you're doing is listening to music. The Calyx M doesn't play that game. It has a single ES9018, a carefully tuned analog stage, and an output that's clean, balanced in tone, not topology, and powerful enough for any normal headphone. Yeah, no streaming, no wireless, no distractions. It is flawed, that's for sure. The interface, can be sometimes sluggish. The touchscreen feels ancient. The battery dies faster than your patience would. But when you hit play, it reminds you what DAPs were meant to be. A pocket-sized stage where your FLACs, your waves, and your DSD files actually matter. It feels like something from a different era, one where engineers built gear to sound good, not to look good on spec sheets. And maybe that's why it still holds a certain mythic charm among a few who remember it, like me. In a market obsessed with polish and software updates, which by the way don't come for audiophile players, the Calyx M feels human. It is imperfect but intentional. It gives you nothing you don't need, and in doing so, or not doing so, it gives you everything that really does matter. DAP culture today is the opposite of all of that. It's gear acquisition disguised as, well, they want to call it progress. Manufacturers churn out iterative designs because they can. Well, and they don't really have any other choice either, because, if they create something that just works and is simple, people will only buy it once. Reviewers play along because it feeds the algorithm, and buyers convince themselves they're upgrading, when in reality they're just refilling the same bucket with new paint. Innovation isn't dead because engineers ran out of ideas. It's dead because marketing killed curiosity. Why design a new DAC architecture when you can just rebrand an ES9039 and call it Next Gen, or add a Pro at the end of the title? Why experiment with user-centric interfaces when Android 13 sounds good enough? We're living in the age of musical beige. Everything technically perfect, but emotionally empty. And that's what the Calyx M exposes, at least to me. It's not nostalgia, it's perspective. It reminds us that audio does not have to be complicated. When you take away Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, you start listening again. You stop thinking about playlists and codecs and battery levels and software updates. You load up your favorite albums, the ones you actually own, and you just listen. Something that Steve Jobs actually talked about back in 2001 with the original iPod. That's what the Calyx M was about. That's what DAPs were supposed to be. The irony is that in chasing high-res convenience, we have built devices that are less convenient and less high-res than ever. We've created DAPs that are essentially crippled smartphones. Expensive, heavy, and outdated the moment they ship. Oh, and by the way, with zero resale value. The Calyx M is not perfect. I've said that many times because it happens to be true. It is, in fact, impractical, discontinued, and in many ways, totally obsolete. But it represents something valuable. Focus. It asks a simple question that the modern DAP world refuses to answer. What are you doing with this thing? If you're going to listen over Bluetooth, why don't you just use your phone? If you're going to stream lossy files, why don't you just use Spotify? But if you truly care about sound, about holding your music, owning it, carrying it without compromise, then the Calyx M reminds you what that looks like. It's the kind of device that makes you question the entire ecosystem. Not because the Calyx M is better, but because it's frankly honest. And maybe that's what we've lost. In the race to turn every hobby into an upgrade path, we forgot that sometimes the best gear is the one that does less and does it well. The Calyx M is not a recommendation. It's a mirror. It shows how far we have drifted from the simple joy of listening. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes it timeless. So, the next time you come across another audiophile review praising the latest DAP, remember a few things. First, that reviewer said basically the same thing about the previous DAP they had just reviewed. Second, the DAP costs at least as much as a modern phone, but with far less functionality. Why are you paying more for less? And finally, the reason you get a DAP is to simplify the music listening process on the go. The best way to achieve that simplicity is to find an older DAP that doesn't have the overhyped frills of current products. There are dozens of good options in the used market, and you would be surprised that some of them actually do something interesting. And you don't have to spend more than $100 or $200 finding these older devices. So, if you still want a digital audio player, do yourself a favor. Don't get yourself a crippled phone. Get yourself something that is dedicated to listening music.